Hey, good afternoon, class. Let me just make a few comments about this week. But first of all, just let me say that, man, looking at your quiz grades, they are incredible. I've never had a class that has done as well as this class on quizzes. You guys have excelled in terms of the grades, and so that's awesome. Congratulations. That surely is a clear indicator that you guys are working really hard. So well done. Great job. The DB is graded. The grades have been posted. Overall, that was good too. Really learning how to answer them a little bit more thoroughly, and continue to do so, because sometimes some sections aren't quite as thorough as others. But overall, great job. You guys are clearly really working hard, and so that's tremendous. That's awesome. Let me just give you a couple clues about this week's discussion board, because there are a couple of factors or issues with some of the questions that might help you do better. First, you're going to have two questions. Your first question and then also the third question ask you for the occasion and the purpose for 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, and then the other one is for 1st and 2nd Corinthians. But let me talk about 1st and 2nd Thessalonians just briefly. The main thing is to make sure that you give me the occasion and the purposes for 1st Thessalonians and for 2nd Thessalonians, for both of them. Make sure you do that. That's part of the question, and then answer each of the other aspects of the question. Also, for 1st and 2nd Corinthians, most of it's pretty straightforward. However, the issue with 2nd Corinthians is over its composite nature. In other words, is 2 Corinthians one letter? Is it two letters? Is it three letters? Is it four letters? But regardless of all that, make sure you answer that question, explaining why something is a composite letter and then what your view is. However, but make sure that you explain really the purposes of 2 Corinthians kind of based upon the division of it, 1 through 9 and 10 through 13. All right? It's right there in the text. You guys will do fine. And then the other kind of difficult question is the one on Paul's correspondence with the Corinthian church. And really what the thrust of that question is about is really kind of explaining the nature of Paul's relationship to the Corinthians, namely how many visits, how many letters, and then lining out the sequence of the visits and the name of the visit. Like one of the letters is called the sorrowful letter, whatever. But lining those out, the first visit, then what was next, and this lining those through. There's several of them there. I think that you'll see them in the textbook reading, but just want to make sure that you get that down and understand that you got to provide the sequence of that relationship. But also, don't forget to give me the views of the potential opponents in the Corinthian church. All right, great. The other question is Romans, occasion, purpose of Romans. Again, just answer those questions and you'll do fine. And then the last one is about definitions, specifically that definition of the righteousness of God, definition of faith, and the definition of justification. All three of those are with respect to Paul. So in the reading, make sure you define those terms according to the textbook. Here's a little hint. Make sure you note that in the textbook there are three specific definitions for the righteousness of God. Different ways of viewing it. So make sure you line those out. If you want to tell me which one you think is most correct, go ahead. That's fine. But I want to see those nuances. So make sure you put those in there. And then making sure that you answer the other faith and justification via the textbook. And so if you want to elaborate on that based upon some other citations, other sources, that's fine. But the crux of the answer should be from the textbook. All right, guys. Listen, I've got to say this. I can't let you go without really emphasizing the importance of the research for your paper. If you don't get going on it now, you'll probably not get it in on time. So make sure that you use scholarly sources. I want to see a really good survey of the history of each period of history for the intertestamental period. What does that mean? Well, that means the Persian period. That means the Greco-Roman period. That means even the and then the various aspects that come even beneath the Greek period, which has to do with Alexander the Great, because after that the period, the Greek Empire was divided up, and so then trace that a little bit as it relates to Jewish history of the intertestamental period. So, and then give me the key figures, not only with the Maccabees, but also with the Hasmonean dynasty. That's very important. And then all the way into the Roman period. So make sure you just give me a thorough survey of those periods. That's important. Then whatever topic you pick to focus on, the second part of the paper, I want to very strongly recommend that you get a couple of extra sources that really hone in on that particular idea, movement, ideology, person, whatever the case might be. But getting a few extra sources on that particular area will really provide a lot of depth to your paper. The textbook just doesn't go into a lot of detail in the various histories and the various movements. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you want to pick Herod the Great. Great. I mean, pick him. It's an interesting figure, interesting guy. But find a monograph, find a couple articles, find a book that really is about specifically Herod the Great or the Herodian dynasty, so that you can get the research, glean the research from those who have really dug deep into the primary resources to figure out kind of a lot more about Herod than we may know just simply from an introduction to the New Testament. So make sure you just go the extra mile, because it's really going to add depth to your paper. Anyway, make sure also you take care of the formal aspects. Check out the form. We've got the writing guide that'll help you with the various footnotes and bibliography. So guys, just get on it, because listen, we're halfway done. It's going to fly. The next half will be just as quick. So keep working. You guys are doing a great job. Proud of you, and look forward to talking with you later.